Jin-Ho finally realized what was really going on. He couldn't believe he'd almost called her ma'am. He felt super embarrassed. Then Songi came out, looking extra sharp in her outfit. Jin-Ho couldn't help but smile to himself. So she's just a teenager crushing on her friend's older brother. Classic. As the squad leader, Jin-Ho thought it would be nice to compliment her on how great she looked. But before he could say anything, Jin-Ho spoke up first. Did you even get any sleep? Jin-Ho sauced. Jin-Ho's eyes widened in surprise. He just stared at Jin-Woo, totally caught off guard. Songi smiled and shook her head. No, I didn't. Not at all. Someone said though. Jin-Ho wasn't sure who was speaking. Then he heard, why don't you take a nap in the van? You look really tired. Jin-Ho's eyes widened as he tried to piece together what was happening. Up before he could figure it out, Songi turned to Jin-Woo and asked, what about you, Jin-Woo? Are you tired too? Jin-Woo shrugged. I caught a quick nap earlier. I didn't get home until after 4 this morning. So the group fell silent for a moment before someone broke the quiet with a concerned murmur. Jin-Ho's mind raced, trying to process everything. Night, no sleep, exhaustion, and getting home so late. Jin-Ho was totally losing it by now. Jin-Woo had started walking toward the van but then stopped and turned around to look at Jin-Ho. Jin-Ho, let's go, Jin-Woo said. Boss? Jin-Ho replied nervously. Jin-Woo replied nervously. Jin-Woo raised an eyebrow. Songi is a minor, boss. And, Jin-Woo asked casually. Nothing, boss. Wow, what a guy. Jin-Ho couldn't believe how fearless Jin-Woo was when it came to breaking society's rules. He definitely wasn't your average person. Jin-Ho felt silly for ever expecting Jin-Woo to act like everyone else. Meanwhile, in a small meeting room at the White Tiger Guild, things were pretty tense. That's all I know, Heejin said, finishing her story. President Baek had suggested she rest first, but Heejin insisted she was fine and wanted the investigation to start right away. She said she'd already gotten plenty of rest inside the Red Gate. The room fell silent. President Baek and Manager N, who were leading the inquiry, didn't know what to say. Kachul, who had led the raid, was at a meeting to figure out what to do next. That left only 3 people in the room. Sangmin finally broke the silence. Is all of this really true? He asked. Heejin replied. You can ask Myeon-won and Kijin. They'll say the same thing. Those two had gone home early, saying they missed their families. Heejin was sure their stories would match hers, because she'd only told them what she saw with her own eyes. For instance, she mentioned hearing ice bears scream in the distance. When Jin-Woo wasn't around, she also saw him getting up at night to do push-ups, while everyone else slept. She only talked about what she had seen herself, not what others might have noticed. Then came a strange sound from Sang Min. It was like a mix of a gasp and a groan all at once. Jin-Woo was seriously strong. He could take down an A-rank hunter with just one punch, bend space however he wanted, and even call up a bunch of his own shadow soldiers to fight for him. It was crazy to think about. But the most mind-blowing part. President Baek finally spoke up and dropped a bombshell. Jin-Woo Sung cleared a high-rank dungeon, almost entirely by himself. It was super possible that he was an S-rank hunter. People were stunned, even though Jin-Woo had fought with minions he'd summoned. They weren't his partners, they were just part of his skill set. Talk about impressive. Jin-Woo had actually managed to clear the dungeon, all by himself. Even top-ranked hunters find it super tough to solo a dungeon, and this one was a red gate, which is even harder than a B-rank gate. Baek might be able to handle a B rank on his own, but Jin-Woo's achievement was possible, because he could summon a bunch of his own powerful soldiers. Songmin was amazed. Jin-Woo definitely has some amazing powers that set him apart. Yu and Ha nodded in agreement. Most hunters can barely control one summoned creature, but Yunho can command an entire army of them. Since becoming an S-rank hunter, he's met many skilled hunters, but none with such a jaw-dropping ability. The president was stunned, exclaiming, "This guy is on a whole other level." Just then, Sangmin had a curious thought pop into his head. What's Jin-Woo's net worth now? Yunho stayed silent. One thing was obvious. Whatever Jin-Woo was worth today, his value would skyrocket after he got reevaluated. That's why they had to sign him before that happened. The White Tiger Guild had already lost an A-rank hunter, and several B-rank ones. If they missed out on someone as valuable as Jin-Woo, it would be a huge blow. I trust you completely, President Baek said, giving Sangmin a confident look. Sangmin's face hardened with determination. Then, Heejin raised her hand. Yunho and Sangmin turned to her. Did you have something to say? President Baek asked. Heejin lowered her hand now that everyone was paying attention. Hey, I really want to help out. Yoonho looked up, curious. With what? Heejin hesitated for a moment before speaking. Recruiting our captain well. Actually, it's Hunter Jin-Woo's son. She almost called him captain but stopped herself. Yoonho and Sangmin exchanged a quick glance before focusing back on Heejin. Sangmin, the one in charge of bringing new members into their group, tilted his head slightly. But why do you want to help? He asked. Heejin smiled confidently. Because I've hung out with him, way more than anyone else in our guild. She paused, adding, even though it's only been 6 hours in real life, we spent almost a week together in the Red Gate. Her voice was enthusiastic, showing her eagerness to contribute. Heejin's idea made sense. Plus, she was pretty charming and that never hurts when you're trying to get people on your side. As soon as Heejin felt they were about to agree, she added with a grin. But there's one condition.
Pak looked at her curiously. What is it? Pass. If Jin-Woo joins the White Tiger Guild, she said. I want to be in his strike squad. No questions asked. Heejin had realized how scary high-rank gates were, and how helpless you could feel inside. Jin-Woo was actually trying to teach Songgi that very thing. It was a bit embarrassing for Heejin to admit. But what choice did she have?
It was super silly to act like something terrifying wasn't a big deal. What happened behind that red gate had definitely left her shaking in her boots. But giving up the life of a B-rank hunter? No way. The awesome pay, the cool perks, and the respect people gave her, made it all worth the risk. Sure, it was dangerous, but it was also the coolest job ever. But here's the thing, it was a big gamble. However, Heejin had found a smart solution, team up with the captain on raids. Inside the red gate, she had always looked up to one person in particular, Sonji. The reason was simple. Jin-Woo had made her a promise. I brought you here, he had said, so I promised to take responsibility and protect you. That meant one thing. Jin-Woo wasn't responsible for keeping anyone else safe except Sonji. The rest were just background characters in the big picture. All along Heejin had been nervous that Jin-Woo and Songi might slip away quietly during the party. Then on the 6th day, Jin-Woo stepped up and soloed the high-rank dungeon by himself, making sure Songi Han got home safe and sound. He'd kept his word, just like he promised. Seeing all of this made Heejin feel confidence. He was totally convinced now. Every time she joined Jin-Woo's team on a raid, she felt completely safe. Just thinking about it got her heart pumped up. Jin-Woo was always calm and totally in control, had incredible skills and acted super responsible. She really wanted her next raid to be with him again, so she made one simple request. Put me on Jin-Woo's team. President Baek and Sangmin talked it over. And then, sure thing, President Baek said with a laugh. For now, you'll be working with Manager N. Thank you. Scouting Jin-Woo wouldn't be a breeze. He knew exactly how valuable his skills were. Even when he was behind the red gate, confidence just poured out of him. Convincing him to join the guild, that wasn't gonna happen overnight. Still, she'd get another chance to see him again. Heejin bit back a grin, trying not to let the others notice. President Baek had been deep in thought for a while before he finally spoke up. Manager, and, he said. That's. Manager and started to explain why Jin-Woo's number was such a big deal. Sang-min filled him in on why Jin-Woo had been keeping his abilities hidden. Yuno listened carefully, and then nodded like he got it. I see why he wouldn't want everyone to know how amazing he is, he said. Some people just want to blend into the background and not be noticed. But one guy like that had just shown off his hidden talents in front of everyone. Sure, he'd been in a tough spot, but it probably meant he was also confident enough to let his true self show bit by bit. As long as things don't blow up, Jin-Woo can't blame you. Manager An, someone said. Sangmin nodded in agreement. Of course he had no intention of spilling the story. Not only would that mess things up for Jin-Woo, but it wouldn't help the guild or the association either. That's true. But Sangmin was worried about something else, like how his boss might ruin everything by jumping in too fast without knowing Jin-Woo's strong personality. Sangmin wanted to stop that from happening. Sarah, I don't think contacting him directly yourself is a good idea, he said. Yoon-ha caught on to what was bothering Sangmin. Oh, this isn't about recruitment. Wait, then why? Eat hunt send. Alev, Lemming Wu said. Yu Hunt replied. He had figured something out while listening to Heejin. The White Tiger Guild actually owed Jin-Woo has saved 3 of their new recruits. On top of that, he'd fixed the mess with the Red Gate, which could have dragged the guild's reputation through the mud. If people found out they'd lost their own recruits, it would have been a disaster. Just thinking about it made Yu Hun shiver, and yet, he had tried to interrogate Jin-Woo like he was some kind of criminal. No wonder Jin-Woo had been so annoyed. He didn't notice it at first, but now that he knew, he wanted to make things right. As the president of the White Tiger Guild, he said with a smile, "I want to say thanks and sorry to Hunter Sung for what happened yesterday." Songmin was touched by his heartfelt words. Since the president was a straight shooter, he wouldn't just thank Jin-Woo and then try to pull him in. Plus Sangmin wanted to thank Jin-Woo too. "Alright," Sangmin said, grabbing his phone to find Jin-Woo's number. President Baek pulled out his phone as well. "What's Jin-Woo's number?" he asked. Sangmin hesitated, mid-search, and turned around. Why do you need it?" "Hunter Park." Hee-jin let out an awkward smile, and quickly hid her phone, which was open to the Add New Contact page. Hunters were the best guild in Korea, after all. The president of the guild, Jonggin Choya, a top-tier S-rank hunter, had just gotten some big news. "Is this for real?" he asked. No way would someone interrupt him with fake news. Mayunki Jo, the head of recruiting, nodded. "Yeah. I got word straight from the association today. Every major guild had spies in the association, so they always knew what was going on." It wasn't exactly brag-worthy, but this was their way of getting a head start on contacting powerful awakened beings before anyone else did. Today though, their informant had dropped something weird on Mayunki. After stressing about it for ages, he decided to head to the president's office. If it involved White Tiger the guild, trying to take our top spot, it was definitely worth bringing up. Now the big question was, should he really tell the president? Mayunki had predicted Jonggin's reaction perfectly. Jonggin's eyes widened in shock as he read the memo. "Wait, you're telling me 2 weaker hunters survived a Red Gate that killed an A-rank hunter and 6 B-rank hunters? And they actually cleared the gate? That's impossible." He shook his head, clearly doubting what he was reading. "There has to be more to this story," Jonggin said firmly. He was certain someone else must have been involved, even if the memo didn't mention it. Mayunki's experience with raids told him all he needed to know. The association thought the same thing, Mayunki said, shrugging his shoulders. "But there was a problem." "What kind of problem?" Jonggin asked, leaning in curiously. "White Tiger wouldn't say anything," Mayunki replied, crossing his arms. "So the association just let it go, like that?" Jonggin's eyes widened in surprise. Mayunki nodded. The incident was their fault, so they didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Jonggin frowned and scratched his head, deep in thought. It was just something he did when he was deep in thought. But why was White Tiger being so quiet? There could only be one reason for it. White Tiger must have gotten help from someone they don't want anyone else to know about. "I think you're right," Jonggin agreed. They were both on the same page. His mind raced as he tried to piece things together. This mysterious supporter had saved low-ranking hunters from a super tough dungeon, where even top hunters had died. Who could this person be? He really wanted some answers. Could it be someone new? A hunter who hasn't been discovered yet? Or was this person a criminal trying to hide their face? Either way, if this was a new hunter, they'd recruit them. If it was a criminal, the hunters would end up ruining White Tiger's reputation. Jonggin's eyes sparkled with excitement. "We need to figure out who was there. Do you have any ideas? Sometimes you have to flush out the culprit by stirring things up." Mayunki's eyes lit up. "Are you gonna set White Tiger on fire? Do you think I'm crazy? Why would I burn someone else's property?" The other person scratched their head. "Sorry, I just thought. Well, you're such an amazing mage hunter." Jonggin was known as the ultimate hunter for a reason. If he went all out with his skills, blowing up a building would be easier than knocking down a house of cards. "That's not what I mean," Jonggin said, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "I'm saying we need to stir up some trouble." Mayunki raised an eyebrow. "So you're talking about..." Jonggin's gaze turned intense, and Mayunki stopped mid-sentence. "Let's spill something to the media," Jonggin suggested, a sly grin spreading across his face. Mayunki's eyes widened in surprise, clearly impressed by the idea. "Brilliant," he exclaimed. "The Hunters Association messed up big time," Jonggin said, leaning in excitedly. "A massive guild tragedy. And there's still so much mystery surrounding it all. The media would eat this up." Mayunki nodded, already on board with the plan. Jungin chuckled, clearly thrilled about the chaos they were about to create. If the White Tiger Guild gets caught off guard by reporters, they'll have no choice but to expose the secret hunter. Myonki burst out laughing. It was a perfect chance to strike back at the guild that had been chasing them nonstop. Jongin couldn't help but grin from ear to ear. Jin-Woo stepped into the dungeon, taking a deep breath as the cool, damp air filled his lungs. After days trapped in an outdoor dungeon, this cave type one felt totally different. It was quieter, darker, and smelled faintly of mold. Soon, Jin-Woo appeared beside him, his voice low but curious. "What kind of creatures do you think we'll face in here, boss?" asked Jin-Woo shrugged, his eyes scanning the shadows. "No idea," he muttered. But something didn't feel right. Jin-Woo could sense they weren't alone, though he couldn't see anything yet. He took a step forward. The ground beneath him started to shift, rising up in different spots. Thud! The noise echoed through the cave as two stone giants stepped into view. Their bodies were made of rough, rocky material, and they looked like they were carved straight out of the earth. "These are stone men," Jin-Hyo said, his voice steady despite the tension. Jin-Woo nodded, his jaw tightening. He had heard about these creatures before. They were known for their rock-solid skin, tougher than any other magic beast you'd find in lower-level dungeons. Everyone thought you needed magic to beat stonemen, but Jin-Woo didn't seem to care. "Hold this for me," he said to Jin-Hyo, handing him a plastic bag with the cylinder inside. Then Jin-Woo walked straight toward the stonemen. Jin-Hyo gasped, thinking the bag must have some kind of weapon in it. But nothing happened. Wasn't that thing supposed to be useful? Meanwhile, Jin-Woo pulled out two weapons, Barca's dagger and the Night Killer. Chunk. With one swift slash, a stone man's head rolled off. Jin-Woo grinned, clearly impressed with the dagger. "Not bad," he said. Then in an instant, Jin-Woo vanished from sight. Chinmook. In that same moment, about 10 stone men collapsed to the ground. When Jin-Woo reappeared, he was standing right behind them, completely unharmed. Crumbles and dust flew everywhere. Man feels so much lighter and faster since I left the Red Gate," Jin-Woo said casually. Well, that made sense. Jin-Woo was now level 60, after all. After taking down those ice bears and ice slayers, he jumped 9 levels from 51 all the way to 60. C-rank monsters now seemed as easy as the weak goblins from E-rank dungeons. No need for weapons here. I've got this. Perfect warm-up. Time to pick up the pace. Next step, summoning his shadow soldiers. As if on cue, a group of stone men came stomping toward them from inside the cave. "Summon," Jin-Woo ordered. Instantly, shadow soldiers hidden in Jin-Woo's shadow popped out and formed a line behind him. Then, a terrified scream echoed through the air. "Jaya!" Jin-Woo smacked his forehead and turned around. Oh yeah, Jin-Hyo was right there with him. Jin-Woo had been having so much fun that he totally forgot his friend was by his side. Jin-Hyo, who had fallen to the ground, pointed at the shadow soldiers with wide eyes. "B-boss." "What in the world are these?" Jin-Woo asked, his voice shaking slightly. "It's kind of hard to explain," Jin-Woo said with a shrug, acting like it was no big deal. "But, yeah, it's one of my skills." Jin-Woo's eyes went wide. "You mean you can actually summon these things?" Jin-Woo nodded casually, like he was talking about something totally normal, not something that would blow anyone's mind. Jin-Woo just stared, his mouth hanging open. No way. This was their 11th time exploring a dungeon together. Jin-Woo thought he'd seen it all by now, but here he was, completely shocked again. Jin-Woo had done it again, surpassing even his own expectations. Jin-Hyo gulped hard as he stared at the soldiers in black armor. They looked super intimidating, radiating a fierce energy. Jin-Woo turned his head to glance in the opposite direction. The stone men were moving slowly but getting closer and closer. "Go," Jin-Woo commanded, his voice firm. Instantly, his shadow soldiers sprang into action, charging forward, as if they'd been waiting for that exact moment. Thud, 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 the ground of the cave shuddered under the heavy footsteps of nearly 40 soldiers. With powerful warriors like Iron, and the shadow beasts now part of his army, their combined strength felt unstoppable. "It's like I'm watching a squadron of tanks," Jin-Woo thought to himself, a satisfied grin spreading across his face. The soldiers charged in and cleared out the dungeon in no time. After the dust settled, the only thing left of the stone men were crumbs that looked like they belonged on a cookie. A C-rank dungeon wiped out just like that. Wow. Jin-Woo couldn't believe how easy it was. If things kept going this way, the rest of the raids would be a breeze. Only 8 more to go. This shouldn't take much longer. Tap, tap. Tap. The end of the battle. The shadow soldiers who were in charge of collecting essence stones snapped to attention in front of Jin-Woo. Igris and Iron, the 2 knight ranks, were at the front of the line. When everyone stopped moving, Jin-Woo walked over to Jin-Woo with a sheepish grin. "Here you go, boss," he said, handing back the plastic bag Jin-Woo had given him earlier. Jin-Woo pulled out a travel mug from the bag and took a sip. "What's that?" Jin-Woo asked curiously. "Vegetable juice," Jin-Woo replied. "Ah," Jin-Woo said, sounding unimpressed. "I just tried it, and it's actually pretty good," Jin-Woo said, slurping down the last of his drink. When the mug was almost empty, Jin-Woo turned to Jin-Woo. "How many gates did you book today?" he asked. Jin-Woo, who had been trying to sneak a touch of a shadow beast's fur, quickly stopped and turned around. 4 in total," he said. That meant there were 5 more dungeons left. If they tackled 4 today. "Alright, let's finish this up by tomorrow, even if we have to go on a long journey." Jin-Woo glanced around at the scattered remains of the stone men. "At this rate, things should wrap up smoothly." "You got it, boss," someone replied. But Jin-Woo paused, unsure how to bring it up. "Hey, can I be the one to collect the essence stones?" someone asked, looking a bit down. "Why do you want that so much?" Jin-Woo replied with a grin. It feels like they're taking my spot," the person admitted, sounding a little hurt. Jin-Woo burst out laughing. "You're definitely one of a kind," he said, shaking his head in amusement. The next day, Jin-Woo kept his promise to Jin-Woo and smashed through all 19 raids. Mission accomplished. "Hey boss, now that we've finished all the raids," Jin-Woo suggested excitedly, "how about we celebrate with a staff dinner?" His eyes sparkled with hope. As he looked at Jin-Woo, Jin-Woo raised an eyebrow, a playful smile spreading across his face. "A staff dinner. That sounds like fun." "It's just us now," Jin-Woo said with a grin. The rest of the squad had headed home after their last mission. Sanji had somewhere else to be, so only Jin-Woo and Jin-Woo were left in the van. Jin-Woo looked a bit shy, but finally spoke up. "Since you're always helping me out, I thought it'd be nice if I treated you to dinner tonight." He sounded cute, trying to play it cool. Jin-Woo chuckled at his roundabout way of asking to grab food together. He wasn't going to say no, especially since Jin-Woo was paying. "Sure, why not?" he said with a shrug. Jin-Woo's face lit up like a light bulb. "I know this awesome hotel restaurant, man. Their steaks are amazing." How about?" Jin-Woo started. Steak was fine, and all. But if he had his way, he'd pick somewhere more chill. Fancy dinners were okay, every now and then. But he wasn't really into them. Wouldn't you know it? Jin-Woo spotted just the place. Tap. He pointed through the window. "How about that restaurant?" "Oh, you want Korean beef?" "No, the one next to it." Jin-Cho squinted. Next to the BBQ spot was only one other restaurant. Pork Belly Blossoms, specializing in thinly sliced pork belly. "Are you talking about the pork belly place?" "Boss, you don't like Korean barbecue?" Jin-Cho cracked a small smile.